Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this video. I'm filming this video because I realized that I need to give a video explanation for the paper too. It's been a while since I've done this particular assignment, and yeah, I thought that it would behoove you to kind of explain my expectations. How do you structure this paper? How do you organize it? And that kind of thing. So just really quickly, I'm going to pull the prompt up and we will talk. So let me share my screen with you. So this paper is called an adaptation evaluation. This paper teaches you an important skill in evaluation. So how do you take something like a movie in this case? How do you evaluate it? So, in a nutshell, what I'm going to ask that you do, and I'm going to use The Haunting from 1963 as an example when I'm talking about my expectations here. Okay. The Haunting from 1963. So, you might ask yourself, okay, I saw this film. Does the film succeed or not at adapting the original text? So that's question one that you kind of need to answer to do a good thesis here. Does it succeed or not? Question two to kind of answer when thinking about how to construct your paper. What were the themes from the original text? So if you think about something like The Haunting of Hill House, the themes in that book was the house and actually haunted. Was this just Eleanor's fracturing psychology? Is that what's responsible here? That's probably the biggest theme of the book. So we'll use that as our first theme. The second theme is maybe like the lesbian subtext between Eleanor and Theo, right? Is that what might be, is what is going on with that? We learn at the beginning of the book that Theo has a quote unquote friend. And then there's all this weird tension between her and Eleanor throughout the book. Maybe the third one is just is this actually a haunted house? Right? Is this a legitimate haunting? Okay, so let's use just those three as an example. So we know the book. So the question now is, does the movie successfully adapt the book? What does the movie perhaps do differently when it comes to the themes and the ideas? So if you can answer those three questions, if you can answer that question, did it do it well? And what themes are you going to talk about with regards to how the movie did it? You can answer those two questions, you got your thesis statement in place. So we take a look here. Um, the introduction. So if I'm just going to kind of use The Haunting of 1963 as my example, since that's the one that's off limits for you guys. Um, the Haunting, we're discussing The Haunting of 1963. Um, some of the great themes from the original text include, was this an actual haunting or was this Eleanor's imagination? Um, was the haunting due in small part due to some repressed sexuality, especially like queer sexuality? Um, was there something weird or strange or uncanny about this house? I posit that The Haunting from 1963 successfully adapts the themes of the book, even with a few changes. We're going to discuss these three themes to show that the movie successfully adapts the book. Okay, so just kind of giving you a verbal essay here, right? That's kind of where I'm going with it. Step two, I actually needed to change my outline here anyway. Provide a summary of the movie, especially any major changes the movie makes in terms of plot. Okay, so think about The Haunting from 1963. What did it change? It didn't change too much, but it focused on certain characters a little more than the book. For instance, Dr. Montague in The Haunting Night from 1963, he is more of a main character in the movie. The movie completely removes Dr. Montague's wife because it's kind of suggesting that Eleanor might have some attraction to him. Um, so there's a few. It also changes the names. It's of the doctor as well as Eleanor's last name. Instead of Eleanor Lance, it's or instead of Eleanor Vance, it's Eleanor Lance, I think, in the movie. Why did they make that change? It's a minor change, but they made it. But there's also some other changes, right? The movie is kind of preachy in some ways that the haunting is actually real. And Eleanor crashes into the tree at the end, right? The movie's kind of like, well, the house got what it wanted after all. So compared to the book, it's a pretty good adaptation. It's 97% similar, I would say, but there are some minor differences with those 3%. So if I was writing my summary section here, I would note some of these observations I made about how did the movie do things differently in the book. So when we get down here to the main body of your paper, criteria or theme, um, so my thesis was I think the movie works in adapting the book. First thing we're going to discuss is Eleanor and her fracturing psychology. So a topic sentence here might be something like, I think the movie successfully adapts the book in terms of looking at Eleanor's character. But then when we get to the evidence section, this is a good place to kind of bring in some of your knowledge about film terms. So, like, what was going on with camera work in the movie, right? What was going on with maybe like the editing and how one scene changes one scene to the next? Why maybe what was going on with the soundtrack or the up close camera work? If you watch the 63 version of The Haunting, right, there's all kinds of interesting camera work. For instance, when Eleanor and Theo were in the room together during the first haunting, there's there's a mirror in the room, and there's one part where the mirror, for instance, see, you guys go back and watch the recording and see what I mean. There's one part where it's like Theo bends over and gets under the covers, and when you look in the mirror, it's only Eleanor in the reflection. Well, they say, for instance, that mirrors are kind of a true image of reality. If it's just Eleanor in the mirror, was Theo actually there in the first place? Right? It's a legitimate question. So, through some tricky camera work, right, the movie might be suggesting that it's actually all in Eleanor's head. Another example, there's the one scene um, where Eleanor, you think she's on the ground and looking up at the tower, but then the camera does a weird spin motion. Then you find out that she was actually up in the tower herself, and she kind of gets a vertigo and thinks about and almost falls off. A scene like that could maybe suggest that Eleanor's that this is all in Eleanor's head. So if I was arguing this first point, for instance, I might be like, yeah, the movie successfully adapts the book in this regard. Here's a couple of different scenes that I'm going to discuss to show that, hey, maybe this is all in Eleanor's head. At the very least, it successfully shows um, this problem of her fracturing psyche in the book. So just kind of talking aloud, kind of giving what I would write in this essay aloud. There's theme one. Theme two, um, the lesbian subtext between Eleanor and Theo. I think the movie successfully shows this theme or this tension between them. So if you recall from some of the materials, there's speculation that Shirley Jackson herself might have had some same sex attraction. There's also the bit at the beginning of the book where it talks about Theo's roommate. The movie doesn't mention that. But there's all kinds of, in the movie, there's all kinds of weird scenes between the two. Theo's really touchy feely with Eleanor. They huddle together real close and tight during those banging on the wall scenes. Um, there's the one scene when Eleanor and Theo are up in the tower. Eleanor calls Theo an abomination. Well, you can kind of really feel the tension between them then. Think about like the 1950s. It wasn't the kindest time period for same sex attraction and gay people, right? So those were Eleanor meant it in the sense you're an abomination with your the way you're acting, but maybe she was trying to cut a little deeper. So if I was going to say, yeah, even though the movie didn't mention the roommate, it successfully shows the tension between these two characters in these various scenes. I'm going to use these scenes as an example. Okay. Third criteria, just the character of Hill House itself. Did the movie successfully show that Hill House is legitimately haunted? Okay. Well, how it was a black and white movie, so how did the movie use shadow and lighting to maybe suggest that there's something eerie about the house? The first scene of the movie, you see the house, half of it's lit up in light and half of it's lit up in darkness, right? Maybe that shot gives it a particular shows something's off. Um, all the mirrors in the house, what does that represent? All the weird decorations with the mise en scène, right? The weird angel statues. What does that represent? The cold room, right? How did the movie depict the cold room? Just talking aloud, all these different things kind of show, yeah, the movie did successfully show something's off and weird about this house. It could be psychology. It could be the fact that it's a legitimate haunting with the way the movie's showing off this house. The movie doesn't give you a definitive answer, and that is the great part of the movie. To conclude, the movie successfully adapts The Haunting of Hill House and these themes. Just kind of sum up your argument again, kind of bring your argument together full circle. That's what you do in a conclusion for this. So just kind of giving a essay out loud, talking you through it. Again, I'm not telling you don't do The Haunting from 1963 just because I don't want you to parrot my example here, right? Whenever you're adapting this, whenever you think about the movie version that you watch, ask yourself, what was the theme of the original? Themes, I should say. Did the movie successfully adapt the book or not with regard to those themes? Maybe the movie did something way different. The 63 haunting is very close to the book. especially when you start getting into Sleepy Hollow or Frankenstein, even the Haunting of Hill House miniseries. Some of these go way out in left field. They become their own thing. Well, when it tried to do something different and do its own thing, did it was it then a successful adaptation of the book? You can argue yes, you can argue no. Here's why. I'm going to argue these three or four different themes. So as far as a couple of other things, I'm changing some due dates around. I originally had the thing due on Monday, but let's make this due Thursday, April the 9th. Okay, Thursday, April the 9th. And when you guys mention specific scenes from the movie, make sure that you give timestamps. Like if you're going to talk about, and you can go back and give timestamps when you're watching it on wherever you watch it. Pay if you cite a scene, just go back and see where that timestamp is. So if this, for instance, if the scene goes from 18 minutes and 20 seconds um, to 20 minutes and 30 seconds, you would put in the parentheses 1800 hyphen 2030. Just to kind of show that's the run time of the scene that you're sliding. So you can, mainly what I'm looking for is I'm looking for some good structure. It's pretty simple, really, when you start thinking about it. Did the movie successfully adapt the book with regard to three or four different themes? Then a intense discussion of the themes and use some of the language of movie, of analyzing movies, mise en scène, camera, soundtrack, editing. Use those terms to kind of making an argument one way or the other. And remember, at the bottom of this list, I have many different film adaptations of these different things. So if you want a good recommendation on which one you might want to run with, just let me know, and I'll be happy to have a chat with you. So that was a short but sweet guide to how to write this paper. Hopefully, this proved helpful. If you guys have any further questions or concerns, just let me know. Thank you.